Pipe shops live and die by speed and zero rework. What if a robot could help you get both? Welcome to Weld, where each week we explore different pathways available in the welding industry. I'm your host, Beau Wigington, and this week we're back at FabTech, heading over to the Novark booth to chat with Alexander Purvis, Senior Welding and Automation Engineer. We dig into TipTIG on their spool welding robot and what it means for the future of pipe welding. We dive in right now. Do you want to introduce yourself to the audience just in case they're not familiar with you and what you do?
So I'm Alexander Purvis. I'm a Senior Welding and Automation Engineer here at Novark Technologies. Degreed welding engineer, CWI, CWE. So I started welding when I was 13. My grandfather got me into it. Just kind of fell in love with it and just decided to make a career out of it. So.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. So Novark, what was the learning curve when you got connected with them?
So I'm a very hands-on person. For me personally, it probably took me roughly an hour and a half to pick up on it. Most people, like our training program, if you were to buy a unit, our training of the newer operators takes 1 week for 3 operators. So it's 5 10-hour days. So we have our training. We send out one trainer, and it's a 3-on-1 ratio. So that one trainer, the first day, he's kind of running through the machine, going through everything, teaching the ins and outs of everything else. And then the last 4 days is really just for each operator have their own day and a little bit more to really learn, run demo coupons, test coupons, just learn how to run different levels of root save on the root opening. That's kind of like a pre-programmed setting that you can use to accommodate a varying gap and fit up, which is really nice that it's automatically built in. So, for a newer operator, if you really have some good arc on time, you're probably really good at it after 2 or 3 days for sure.
That's not a long learning curve.
It's intended to be simple because we don't expect a perfect fit up. We don't ask for a perfect fit up. We don't ask for machine, a J bevel or anything else. Just like you would have a bevel and a land on a fitting, you can have a bevel and a land on a pipe, right? So we do have a fit up tolerance that we ask to stay within, but even so, you have a tolerance. And so we expect and we built the system to accommodate that because we know that in most fab shops, a perfectly aligned fit up without high-low and everything else isn't realistic. Mm-hmm. So we want to give them a tool, like a successful working tool to accommodate that variance.
I want to back up a second. Okay. SWR, what does that stand for?
So SWR stands for spool welding robot. So the SWR, as you kind of see behind us, so anything that's red and yellow, so that is a Gibbons Engineering pneumatic manipulator. So the entire thing is run on air. So from a maintenance standpoint, on air, 100 PSI of air. So from a maintenance standpoint, there's almost nothing. There's no hydraulics, there's no grease, there's no everything else. All of the bearings and everything else are packed and sealed. So you don't have to worry about grinding dust and debris. Everybody always asks, it's a big piece of equipment. What's my maintenance schedule? Sounds very salesman-y, but there's hardly anything. So we buy that and we bolt on our thing. So everything that you see that's silver is made by Novark. So this is the power cabinet with all of our drives and motors and everything else. And then the business end, that's our collaborative robot because SWR is a collaborative robot. So we do have safety sensors just like you would see on a United Robotics or Fanuc or anything else like that. That's really, really popular.
The thing that jumped out to me when you were talking about, we don't require a perfect fit up and, we have a tolerance, that's not common.
Yeah. Yeah. And in most automation, it's not, right?
Yeah.
And I've been in, hundreds, if not thousands of shops, and I can't tell you how many times a company has been sold on a 6-axis robotic cell that's supposed to be designed to weld open root pipe. Mm-hmm. And they're all covered in an inch of dust, right? And it's because if they require a perfect fit up or, they have a very, very small tight window. And if you get outside that window, then it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Right. So our fit up spec is we want a nominal 332 root opening, which is like a 2.5 millimeter root opening. So we can go down to a 16th or 1.5 mils, and we can go up to a heavy 8.
Dang.
All with a 16th land.
Most welding students coming out of school should be able to do that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I've never heard of a robot doing open root pipe yet, except with y'all. And Cam, I see him. He sends us stuff all the time.
Yeah, good dude.
Yeah, very good dude. The TIG, that's the newer version, right?
Yes, correct. The TIG came out It was launched late last year. So I have the first TIG unit that was put into Houston at the Customer Experience Center. And then Cam actually got our pilot build where he works. And so, man, he has done everything to make that thing like sing and shine, and it's great. And he's what I call a champion as far as a piece of automation. He took it, he ran with it, he made it his, and
he's laying down some
amazing welds for sure.
On the MIG side, like what kind of industry is that geared towards? Because like TIG, you're probably the more like critical, like your stainlesses and like things that are like you want to have a very flush route, like MIG, you kind of either you're going to have a little bit less or a little bit more depending on whatever the fit up is. Like what on the MIG side, what is the main applications that you see them out there in the field for?
So most of our SWRs is going to be for prefab of a pipe, right? So it's not really designed per se to go out in the field. We want to do prefab pipe spools and pipe packages and then ship them off on the job site. So there's less on-site welding to be done or field welding to be done. Mm-hmm. So as far as what traditionally has kind of carried the SWR to its success has been mechanical contractors, right? So water pipe, hospitals, stuff like that, mechanical contractors. So we're slowly starting to break into the oil and gas space. A lot of what has kind of held back on the oil and gas space is just because the stigma of short circuit routes, right?
Yeah.
So, everybody knows the bad incident where a lot of people got killed because of the short circuit routes, but at the same time, STT and RMD are so tried and true. I think some of that, the welding industry is the welding industry, right? It takes like 40 years to get anything adopted, and by that point, they don't want to change off of that once it finally gets adopted. And now, so traditionally, it's been mechanical contractors. So that's water pipe, low pressure stuff. We do have some customers who are starting getting the oil and gas. We actually have a customer in Beaumont that does all offshore high pressure stuff with theirs. They have a MIG and a TIG. So it's really kind of dependent upon if their customer allows a STT or short circuit route, and then a MIG filling cap. But again, with our MIG system, we have a dual torch system. So you could have a hardwire short circuit route and then swap over to flux-core filling cap. It's a lot of different options there. Like you said, I agree with the TIG. So that's probably going to go more towards the stainlesses. We're currently working on a nuclear project that's going into Great Britain. And so that's on 8-inch 160 316L. So we're doing really good work on there. So it's going to be the nuclears, the oil and gas and stuff like that. So
what has the response been in the oil and gas world to like the TIG?
What I always ask everybody, like, hey man, you bring your pieces, you bring them tacked with your guys. If you want to bring in an operator, I can halfway train him and we can get him trained up where he could pretty much kind of run the robot in roughly an hour. And then he's making welds, right? So trying to get that operator buy-in is probably one of the hardest things as far as like selling capital equipment, especially automation in the welding world. Just because a lot of welders kind of see it as, hey man, you're kind of taking my job. Like, I'm trying to make your job easier, trying to make it safer, right? So like when you're roughly, 4 to 5 feet away from the arc, away from the heat, away from the smoke, you're not bent over position anymore. If it's hot, you can be sitting on a stool and have a fan on you. You're just working on a pendant, right? Looking at a screen. Sounds great to me if it's in the winter, right? Hey, I can be sitting next to a heater on a chair with, bundled up.
Or I can just get closer.
Yeah, or you can just get closer. It's beneficial. And the safety aspect too, like especially if you're welding a lot of stainlesses, the hexavalent chrome, nobody wants to fight that. Nobody wants to wear a PAPR either. And so then it gets back, well, do you have fume extraction? You don't have fume extraction, that's another issue. So the further you can get away from those fumes and everything else, the better, right?
Yeah, absolutely. What are some things that you talk to potential customers that really surprises them, like when you tell them about it?
Here recently, it's just been like when we say, oh yeah, we have autonomy. And they're like, what does that mean? It's like, that means I can walk the SWR up to the joint, set it on a tack, get everything squared up and press start, and the operator can essentially walk away. When we say we're using AI, it's actually using AI, and we can actually monitor and read that variable root opening as well as high-low, and we jump between what we call different levels of root sync. So we have 7 different levels. So we have a big green R, that's our recipe, our procedure. It's kind of like the starting point of that procedure. So like, we expect this with the nominal 332 root opening. This is the ideal welding parameters for that. Okay, so the other 6 levels, so you have +1, +2, +3, bigger numbers, bigger gaps. So as that gap starts to increase, we're going to increase our weave width, pull down on our wire or our amperage and, adjust those parameters to accommodate that wider root opening. The inverse of that, -1, -2, -3, smaller number, smaller gaps. So we're going to bring in that weave width, increase our heat just to make sure we can push it. So the AI is using those root save levels based off of what it's reading in real time directly in front of the puddle and jumping between those different levels of root saves to get you the best root possible. So because we can have up to 4 positioners coupled with the SWR, right? So if a welder or an operator can go, we can start on one joint, get that rocking and rolling, and we're welding there. He can go help a helper swap out another positioner. Maybe he needs to feather out a tack. Maybe he needs to find the tack that, 15 to 20 degrees off top dead center where we're going to start on the next weld if he's at the end of the spool, right? So we're trying to make that operator more efficient, trying to get him to be able to do more with the time.
Like everyone understands like feeding wire on MIG, right? Like on the MIG unit. On the TIG unit, how do you guys approach it?
So our TIG unit is coupled with TipTIG, or the mechanized TipTIG process. So TipTIG is a hot wire TIG process, which means that when the wire is in contact with a puddle, we're resistively preheating the material or the filler metal with 80 amps of power. But what's special about TipTIG is that wire does oscillate. That oscillation happens about 20 hertz or 20 times a second. And that oscillation, every time it hits the weld puddle, we're helping break the surface tension of the puddle, which is kind of like mimicking a dab if you're thinking about manual TIG welding and stuff like that. So we're getting the penetration. If there's any impurities or anything else like that in the puddle, it's going to make sure it comes up to the top, so we can get it off. Yeah, it's there. But so that's our wire delivery system on the TIG system. So we have pretty much a standard machine TIG torch, uses the same Jumbo XL gas lens, same Jumbo XL cup, same tungsten, everything else. So it's designed to be off-the-shelf stuff, off-the-shelf parts. There's nothing special about it. So you can go to any gas supply company to get all those same consumables, right?
When you go and you have somebody adopting this, like how do you help them dial it in? Is it in the program, or is it going to be kind of like a touch and go? We got to like dial it into where it's going to be.
So if you were to buy an SWR today, so it's going to come with what are called recipes or procedures. Those recipes and procedures are based off of the pipe diameter and the wall thickness, right? Okay. So when we do a demo later, we have 6-inch 10 and 6-inch schedule 40 here. And so based off of that, like a 6-inch schedule 10 would be a 2-pass weld because of the wall thickness and everything else. We're going to run a little bit cooler on the amperage. And then on the cap pass, right? Second one, you have a different set of amperage and wire, stuff like that. On a schedule 40, it would be a 3-pass weld unless you have a tighter, bevel angle, included bevel angle. And then you could potentially have it at 2. It just kind of comes back to making sure you play that mechanical game as far as stainless or materials, just to make sure we don't have our heat too high and stuff like that. Now, what I always tell our customers is, so we give you a procedure or recipe, but we're trying to hit most everybody in the market, right? And so we give you the fit-up specifications, and we know that not everyone's going to meet exactly at the same point in that fit-up specifications, just like they're not going to meet that exact same point in the welding procedure, the program. So what I always tell everybody is when we give it to you, that's a really good starting point, because everybody has a little bit different expectations, but they're pretty close. You want to take that, make a copy of it, and then we can simply adapt and change it to basically what the customers want to see every day as a result of their shop.
People that fear automation, people that fear this, like how do you ease people's mind when talking about stuff like this?
I always pitch it like this. So if you're going to buy a piece of automation or a piece of capital equipment, you have to find your champion, right? Yeah. In most shops, if you have a fabricant like a foreman or, a shop, and that most of those leaders in that shop, they're going to already know who that champion would be, who's open to the new technology, who wants to see it succeed. Somebody like Cameron, right? And then the biggest thing with that is taking that person and giving them all the tools and all the power necessary to be successful in doing it. And from the welder side, man, it's just getting them comfortable with it, right? Yeah. And it's reps, right? So the more time that you can spend on the machine, the more that you can keep, you're knocking out welds and everything else like that. Like I know Cameron did a test. I don't know if you guys know about this. So they fit up all the exact same pipes, pipe size, pipe schedule, same fit, same everything. And they put Cameron head to head with 5 manual operators, and he out-welded 5 manual operators with the SWR.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I think Cameron's like 158 inches in a day, and then the 5 manual welders roughly were like 148 or 150 altogether.
Hey, altogether.
Altogether.
That's wild.
Yeah. So I get the understanding of, hey man, I've spent this time, I've spent this money building this craft and building this muscle memory to be able to do this. And I'm worth this much, right? But if I were in a shop and I was welding manually in Texas, right? And it's August, it's hot, I'm dripping sweat, right? And I look over and I see a dude, he's got like a little Milwaukee battery powered fan blowing on him. And he's sitting on a stool watching the TV screen while he's welding. I'd be like, man, I want to do that, right? I want to be that guy's job. And so like and some of it's just being open to that and being open to change, and then being like, hey man, my life is better because of it. Yeah. Like if those guys don't want to change, that's on them, not on me.
This has been a great conversation. If someone wants a demo or they want to see it in action, like how do they have to come down to you? Do you go to them? Like how does that process work?
If you want to see a demo, so you can go online on our website, novarktech.com. And so there are what we call demo on demands. So you can sign up for that. You can watch videos of me. I'm sorry in advance. Of me doing carbon steel assist, carbon steel autonomy, stainless steel assist, and then also TipTIG. So that's what you would see in person, but it's just a pre-recorded. I kind of walk you through the process, how to program the HMI, how to walk up to the weld, what I'm looking at while I'm welding, and everything else in the HMI. As far as fabricators and everything else, you can go on there, still do the demo on demand, or you can request more information, and our marketing team will reach out to you, and that the account executive that is over that territory will reach out. If you want to come see an in-person demo, so we do have the Customer Experience Center down in Houston. Our account executives and marketing team would set up that visit, and you can be more than welcome to come down, see a demo in person, touch it, feel it, because me personally, that's how, if you're going to be successful in selling automation and new capital equipment, that's how it has to be, right? Everybody wants to come see it, because I can tell you all day long, man, I have autonomy. I can push a button and it's going to put in that weld in that 6-inch 40 carbon steel pipe over there, that stainless pipe, whatever. It's like, man, that's not true. There's no way. But if you come see it, it's different because you see it with your own eyes in person. You can touch and feel it. You can, try and break it, right? And so on most assist welds, like if I have somebody who's going to be an operator there, I'll get about halfway through the pipe. I'm like, all right, man, come over here. I'm going to let you drive.
Yeah.
Because it's simple. The pendant is designed to be simple. It's designed to be easy to train. When the arc is going, I'm worried about centering up, down, left, right. And I have one button for that grid save level on assist. If you have autonomy, it's even easier than that. You just press the start button and you run.
This has been very, very enlightening. And I cannot wait to see this demo. Well, I appreciate you.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to be here.
Thanks for tuning into another episode of Weld, and a huge thank you to Novark and Alexander for sitting down with me and chatting and letting me try it out. I got to run not just one, but 2 different pipe joints, and it was amazing to see how easy it was to just get going with it. If you want to demo their product or need more information, go check down in the show notes. I'll make sure to have those links there for you. Just on a personal side for me, if you have never tried any automated welding processes, I highly recommend you just give it a go. It definitely changed my mind the first time I tried to use one because I thought it'd be super complicated, but that's not really the fact. Everyone's trying to make them really easy to get up and running no matter what kind of skill level you have working with a robot. So give it a try, invest in your future, and until next time, we'll see you out there.